Let's talk to God. One more thing, like, subscribe and share. Come on, let's talk to God. Woo!
Hey, good evening, everybody, and Happy New Year. This is our first time meeting since the new year. It's Cutler here on the Let's Talk to Cutler broadcast, the Let's Talk to Cutler virtual book club, the Let's Talk to Cutler YouTube platform. And I am only here for 1,800 seconds. As I've said so many times before, I'm just trying to help save somebody's life. And I'm here to offer some inspiration, some motivation, and hopefully challenge us to show up our best selves, even in the worst of situations, because life just happens. We had a whole year of coming through 366 days, because this was a leap year, coming through 66 days where we had an opportunity to show up our best self. And as we look back over the year, the question is, did I really show up my best self? Cutler, I know you talked about trying to inspire us. I know you talked about trying to motivate us. I know you talked about also challenging us, but I have to ask myself, I have to do some introspection and ask myself, how did I show up? I should have just called this broadcast, How Did I Show Up Last Year? Because the goal is to make sure that I show up my best self, even in the worst of situations, And for those of you who were with me all through 2024, and those of you who joined occasionally, who joined whenever you did, who caught the replays, thank you all so much. We're moving into 2025, and those of you who are coming in, come on in and come on into the chat room, say hi to everybody, and wish a happy new year to our fellow members here, fellow friends, and here on this platform. Again, thank you all for being with me. I'm just delighted to see all of you. Just make your way over to the chat. I see you signing on. Come on, make your way to the chat. And again, I was just thinking earlier today, how did I show up last year? It does me no good to sit in the space with all of you wonderful people and talk about inspiring us and motivating us and challenging us to show up our best selves, even if and then do all of that, and then I not show up my best self. So I had to say to myself, Cutler, how did you show up last year? What did that look like? Are you pleased with how you showed up? Are you satisfied with how you showed up? Are you okay with how you showed up? Did you show up your best self given every opportunity you had? And that's a question that's a self-challenging question that only you can answer. I can't answer for you. You can't answer for me. But we have to ask ourselves, how did I do? If I had to give myself a score, if I had to give myself a report card, the question is, how did I show up on a scale of 1 to 100, with 100 being the best and 1 being just horribly? How did I show up? Did I show up authentically? Did I show up organically? Did I show up genuine? Did I show up honest? Did I show up real? Did I show up with integrity? Did I show up with my character in check? How did I show up? Did I show up with no regrets? Did I show up hypocritical? Did I show up lying? Did I show up fearful? Did I show up anxious? Did I show up doubtful? How did I show up last year? Specifically, how did I show up when there were challenging moments? How did I show up when there were challenging moments? Again, so that's just food for thought. We can take and we can talk about it. Hey, if this is your very first time, yes, this is what we do here. We talk about real situations, real life, real incidents, and real circumstances and scenarios. So I want to say thank you. And I want to invite you and encourage you. If this is your first time, if you've caught me before, if you still haven't, if you haven't signed up, you haven't subscribed, do me a favor, go ahead and subscribe. I'd love to have you as a subscriber during 2025, because I'm just trying to help save somebody's life. I'm just trying to give us these real scenarios that we deal with all the time. This evening, I want to talk about lay aside the weights. It comes from one of my favorite passages that talks about us, let us lay aside every weight. And I stopped there. And I stopped there intentionally and deliberately and purposefully, because I want to talk about what does it look like as we're going into 2025. Yeah, I'll do the shout outs. I promise you I'll come back. In fact, let me just do that now and shout out the LTTC VIPs VIPs for the evening, and the LTTC VIPs are those who show up in the chat room, the ones that I see on my end first. And so if you said, Cutler, I showed up and you didn't call my name, I'm just going on those. So, please don't hold me hostage to this. I'm just calling those who showed up first on my end, and they are Annie Cutler, Paula D, and Marissa. Happy New Year to all of you all. It is so wonderful to see all of you all, and I'm thankful that you are here, and you really do make this platform what it is. So thank you all so much for showing up and making this platform what it is. I appreciate you more than you know. I really do. But I want to talk about this evening. I want to talk about laying aside the weights. And again, I was reading and reflecting on one of my favorite passages, and I got to a certain part and I stopped. Now, let us lay aside every weight. And I thought about that, you all. I thought about the things that bog us down, the things that weigh us down, the things that hinder us, and the things that impede our progress, the things that slow our ability to recognize victories, the things that push against us when we're trying to move forward. Let us lay aside every weight. And I examined that and I broke it down, and I thought about the fact that it says, let us. Not let anybody else. As you're going into 2025, the responsibility of getting the weights off of you is not anybody else's responsibility except for you. For me, it is the same thing. It is nobody else's responsibilities to take the weight off of my shoulder. The responsibility belongs to me. So when I read that passage that says, let us lay aside, it says, Cutler, lay aside the weights. Don't expect anybody to take the weight off you. The responsibility of laying aside the weight is yours. And so I want us to understand that the times when we are burdened down, times when we feel hindered, times when we feel all of that, it is my responsibility. I have the power to take the weights off. I have the authority to take the weights off. I have the wherewithal to take the weights off. So whatever is holding you down, what's bogging you down, you have the authority and the power and the ability to take the weight. Let us lay aside the weight. Don't expect anybody else to take the weight off, because a lot of times people are taking weights off and they're tossing it your way. And sometimes you just take the weights, and sometimes the weight is just self-imposed. I'm holding myself down. So it's not necessarily anybody else's responsibility to take the weight off except for me. The things that are holding me down, it's my responsibility. Cutler, that sounds very challenging in 2025. You're just taking off at a 10 because you're talking about me and it's my responsibility. I'm not saying that it is your fault that you are weighted down. I'm saying that you have the power and the ability to remove the weights. Whether somebody else placed them on your shoulder or not, you have the ability to remove the weights. Whether they are self-imposed or not, you have the ability to remove the weights, the things, the hindrances, the things that are holding you down, the things that are stifling your growth. You have the ability to handle all of those things. And so let us lay aside every weight. And we have to think about it. What does that mean? What does a weight, when I think about that, what does it mean? What does it look like? Every weight. Sometimes weights are people. You already know I was going to start 2025 off like that, did you? Sometimes these weights that we're talking about are people. And so let us lay aside some of these relationships because they weigh us down. And we have to think about that, the things that are holding us down, the things that are delaying us, the things that are stifling our growth. And we have to think about all of that. The things that are causing me doubt, the things that are causing me fear, the things that are causing me anxiety. I have to think about all of that. Again, whether they are self-imposed or not, let us lay aside every weight, every doubt, every fear, every anxiety, every cause of stress. Cutler, lay aside all of that stuff. Cutler, take that stuff off of your shoulder. If I can cutlerize that passage, let me remove all of the things that are holding me down. Can I do that? Absolutely. I have the power, I have the authority, I have the creativity, I have the ingenuity, I have the will, I have the fortitude, I have the stamina, I have the tenacity to remove all of that stuff. And so do you. And sometimes that stuff equals people. I have the ability to handle those relationships like they need to be handled in such a way that they don't weigh me down. I'll tell you something that I did just recently, but I have the ability to handle those relationships. And so then hear me clearly. Let us lay aside every weight. And I thought about not only the us word, not only the weight word, but I thought about every. You see, sometimes we are codependent. But if we are going to walk free and in the fullness and the authenticity of who we are, this passage admonishes us to lay aside every weight. Not half of them, not a quarter of them, not some of them, not the majority of them, but all of them. And it calls for us, whenever the weight is a person, it calls for us not to be so codependent. A lot of times we're just codependent for what reason, I don't know. Maybe it's because we didn't think that we were good enough, or maybe it's because we think we need somebody else's validation, or maybe it's because we can't operate without somebody putting their stamp of approval on us, or maybe it is because we don't know how to navigate life alone, or life by ourselves, or life in certain spaces. But one of the things we have to do is lay aside every weight. Some of the things, can I just say this, because there's some things that we hold on to in our lives for the purposes of comfort. I'm comfortable here, so I'd rather deal with my discomfort with which I am familiar than to deal with the freedom that I don't quite know just yet. Sometimes we get a high out of those familiar spaces, even the ones that weigh us down. And so I want us to think about that this year. As you're going into 2025, let's just lay aside every weight. Anything that would hinder you, anything that would hold you back, anything that would hold you up, let us use our authority, let us use our ability, let us use our tenacity to just lay them aside. And a lot of times it is just that simple. They're not so ingrained and so embedded and so interwoven into who we are until we can't get in there and find it. A lot of times there are things that are just sitting on our shoulder, and we're carrying around things, we're carrying around stuff, we're carrying around burdens, we're carrying around weights, we're carrying around people, and we're carrying around stuff. And this passage says, just lay it aside. Just remove it. Just get it off of you. The things that so easily stifle you, so easily hinder you, so easily cripple you, let's just lay them aside. As you're going into 2025, let's just lay this stuff aside. What are some of the stuff that we're talking about, color? I'll get into it. Some of the stuff some of the weights are unforgiveness. Can I say this to you all? It's too early in 2025 to be harboring resentment toward people. It's like it's like holding on to a stone or a brick or a block. You got your arm stretched out and you're holding on to it. And the longer you hold on to it, the heavier it gets and the more it weighs you down. And while you're holding on to that brick or that stone or that rock or that block, and your arms are stretched out and you're holding on to it, the longer you hold on to it, the heavier it feels. And then it not only it weighs your hand down, and then your elbow, and then your whole arm, and then your shoulder. And the next thing you know, it's weighing your whole body down. And that is because you held on to it for too long. Harboring that kind of stuff will weigh you down. Get rid of unforgiveness. I don't even have to ask if this is helping, because when I tell you, I understand that getting rid of unforgiveness will really increase the value and the freedom that you have in your life. Forgiveness is your gift to you. Let me say that again. Forgiveness is your gift to you. You don't have to expect anybody else to give it to you, but when you execute and when you demonstrate forgiveness, it is your gift to you. And what does it do? Let us lay aside every weight. It helps you to lay aside the weight. And for me, I have to share this with you all. I had a certain circumstance or situation in my life, and in 2024, I said, you know what? I am going to forgive the person. I really am. I'm going to forgive the individual and just move along. But I realized that I was saying it, but then my mind would constantly go back to it. And I would remember that it was a challenge for me to forgive. And so I finally said to myself, Cutler, what you need to do is get yourself together and really stop harboring resentment. Because on one hand, you say, oh, well, I thought I'd forgiven the person. Then here you are harboring resentment. And I was. And so I said, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to demonstrate. I'm going to model what this looks like for me, because you all have been with me for a while. So one of the things I often say is, what does that look like for you? What does unforgiveness, what does laying aside the weight look like? And so for me, laying it aside meant that I had to demonstrate to myself. And so in demonstrating to myself, I extended the olive branch. And I said to myself, I'm going to extend the olive branch, and I'm going to extend the olive branch without any expectation. I don't know how the individual is going to respond. I have no idea. But I extended the olive branch, and it was not received. But guess what that did for me? That helped me to release and let go of the weight. It caused me to lay aside the weight. And I knew when I extended the olive branch, rather than just saying it with my mouth, I knew in that moment that I really had let it go. Marissa, you're right. Letting go can release stress. It really can release stress, and it adds positivity and energy and creativity and all of those things to your life. And so then one of the ways that we need to let go is unforgiveness. Can I tell you another way that we need to let go is debt. We got ready for the holidays and we just went crazy spending money. We tapped into accounts so we didn't necessarily need to tap into. But can I say this? Financial debt can feel suffocating. So one of the things that we need to do is learn how to release. Let us lay aside. We need to lay aside the burden that is called debt. It will stress you out. It will cause your blood pressure to go up. It would cause some people to go into cardiac. It would cause some people to have strokes. And I'm not downplaying this, and I'm not talking lightly. I mean this with all of my heart. The thought of being in debt is just that crucial and critical for a whole lot of people. And not dealing with it can result in something that is not healthy. It diminishes your quality of life. So to the extent that you can, as we talk about, let us lay aside every weight, we can lay aside unforgiveness, but let's also try to lay aside the debt. Can I tell you this? One of the other things we need to lay aside is pride. Maybe this is not for us. Maybe it's for somebody that we know. So please make sure that you share this, because we're talking about how to let us lay aside every weight, unforgiveness, debt, pride. There's some things we just need to let go of. And one is our ego. Because our ego causes us not to see ourselves the way that we really are and the way that other people see us. Our ego causes us to see ourselves in a skewed and distorted mirror. Ego causes me not to see the things where I am at fault. It causes me not to see my wrongs. It causes me not to see my shortcomings. It causes me not to see my downfalls. It causes me not to see me in a negative light or in a real light. Ego causes me to defend myself, and it prevents me from growing. But we need to sometimes lay aside pride. And I'm talking about pride that comes from an unhealthy place in your ego. Yes, you all have been with me long enough to know that I really believe in self-pride and being proud of who you are and how you handle life. Absolutely. But now I'm talking about this unsensy health of being, and this unsensy health of self, and this unhealthy sense of self, rather. We don't sometimes want to admit when we're wrong. But can I tell you this? That when you just lay aside every weight, and the weight is called pride, It'll lighten your emotional load every time. It'll give you an opportunity to find the help that you need and to move in the spaces that you need to move in. Another way, what else weighs us down? I'm gonna tell you something that weighs us down, and I hope it is my hope that as the year moves along, we're able to do something about this, because so many of us still have negative self-images. Let's lay aside that weight. And sometimes that stems from the damage that was done to us from years ago. But I have to help us, you all. And I mean this, I mean this, and I want us to grasp this. I want us to get this, because a lot of times people are still dealing with negative self-imagery, and it comes from years ago. It comes from childhood. It comes from early developmental years. It comes from those times. But feeling bad about yourself, it just consumes a whole lot of mental energy. It takes a whole lot away from your productivity as a person. Think about it. Every single time you look in the mirror and you feel discontent, you feel dissatisfied, you feel discouraged. Every time you look in the mirror and that is your visceral reaction, what are you doing? It's weighing yourself down. You're weighing yourself down. So we need to get to a place where it is not about having a negative self-image, but it is about loving me for me, loving who I am. And no, that does not mean I'm perfect by any stretch of the imagination. Nobody is perfect. But here's the thing. We talk about inspiration and motivation and showing up our best selves, even in the worst of situations. If you are trying to be your best, you deserve more credit than you often give yourself. If you are trying to be your best, you need to give yourself more credit than you've been doing so far. You deserve more credit than you've been giving yourself. Things that weigh us down. I was thinking about it. I was driving back home just moments before I had to go online and go on air and do what we're doing now and have this conversation. And I was just thinking about, let us lay aside every weight. And let's give a name to these weights. Sometimes the weight is the fear of failure, which will paralyze you. Let us lay aside the weight. Sometimes the weight is a fear of failure, and it weighs you down. It paralyzes you to the point that you don't want to, and you are afraid to do anything. And the longer we hold on to this unhealthy fear, what we start depriving ourselves of opportunities for growth and opportunities for happiness and opportunity for advancement and opportunities for acceleration. We deprive ourselves of all of those things. And the fear of failure, let's call it what it is. The fear of failure is a distraction in your life. It is a distraction. And it's one of the things that we need to learn how to handle. It's one of the things that we need to learn how to deal with. Can I tell you another thing that weighs us down? Procrastination. Let us lay aside every weight. And as a matter of fact, I was thinking not only WEIGHT, but let us lay aside every weight, WAIT, because there are some things that are weights, that are hindrances, that stifle my ability to move forward, to move progress, that causes me to become stuck. And what are some of those things? Procrastination is one of them. It caused me to be stuck in one place, spinning my wheels in the mud. Procrastination. I need to get things done within this amount of time, but I end up procrastinating. That's a weight. And we need to lay aside that WEIGHT and that WAIT, because here we are waiting unhealthily for no reason. Another weight, regrets. I was having a conversation a few days ago, and we were talking about whether or not we live with regrets. I think we all live with regrets. It's just how we handle them. Nobody's life is perfect, and sometimes we wish if I could turn back the hand of time, if I could go back and redo or undo some of the things that I did, but I can't do it. So I'm stuck with what I did do because I can't undone what I did do. So we have to say, you know what? There are some regrets that are holding me down, and I need to let them go. The regrets that are causing me to live where? In the past. It's called the past just for that reason. Learning from what happened in the past is extremely beneficial. Learning from what happened in the past, learning from the situations of the past is extremely beneficial. But dwelling on all of them is stifling, it's detrimental. Why would you say that, Cutler? Because when we live in the past, we carry the weight of our past mistakes. And so now here I am regretting. I'm regretting every day, every week, every month. There's something that I regret and it's weighing me down. I'm just trying to help us, you all. I really am. Because these are weights that we carry. So when we talk about let us lay aside every weight, the things that stifle us, the things that cause us not to advance, not to progress, not to move, not to grow, something else that sometimes stifles us and becomes a weight is jealousy. 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 It creates this negative thinking, this cycle of negative thinking. And yes, it becomes cyclical and systemic. Jealousy means every time I see that individual, every time something triggers me, I'm thinking in an unproductive way. And for some people, what has happened is that the longer they've held on to this jealousy and they've allowed it to linger, it begins to tarnish their happiness. Have you seen people who they just don't even look happy? You could be holding a happy conversation and they just don't look happy at all. We just need to lay aside jealousy. Lay aside these negative thinkings and negative feelings and being unproductive. Let's just lay them aside. Let's lay aside the notion of comparing ourselves to people that we see on social media. Yeah, let's not do that. Let's not do that. We just move right along comparing ourselves to people that we see in social media when the truth of the matter is that may not even be the true representation of their own lives. Let us lay aside every weight. And can I give you one more? Can I give you just one more? Guilt and shame. Well, I said one. Let me give you this other one. And unresolved conflicts. I started with unforgiveness, and now I'm getting to this point. Unresolved conflicts, you all, let us lay them aside. Let us lay them aside. Do you know people who are mad at each other for years and generations, and now their children are mad at the children, and the grandchildren are mad at each other's grandchildren, and they don't even know why? These unresolved conflicts, let us just lay that stuff aside. Let family be family, let friends be friends, and just lay these unresolved conflicts aside, because conflicts that we don't deal with, it becomes heavier and heavier over the year. And then you look at people and you have to remember, oh, we don't talk, we don't communicate, we don't fellowship, we don't do stuff. But can I suggest to us that in 2025, what we need to do is address issues directly and head on and honestly, and not sweep them under the rug, and aim for a resolution so that I can be okay emotionally, I can be okay spiritually, I can be okay psychologically. We need to do that. Marissa, you're right. My friend, you summarized it. Remove negative weights, W-A-I-T-S, and weights, W-E-I-G-H-T-S, from ourselves. That's what we need to do. I just wanted to share that with us, you all, because as we're getting ready for 2025, 2025 is here. We're in the throes of 2025. But as we proceed and advance throughout this year, let us be of the mindset that says, you know what? I'm just not going to deal with any emotional, unnecessary weights. I'm not going to deal with any unnecessary W-E-I-G-H-T, W-A-I-T-S. I'm just not going to deal with them. And so here we've talked about it. If you need to, then come back and catch this broadcast from time to time. Bring somebody else back and say, you know what? Maybe you need to hear that, because if you're dealing with things that are bogging you down and holding you down and you feel like you're stuck in the mud, go and watch Let's Talk the Colors broadcast, where he talked about let's lay aside the weights. Please share this with somebody, you all, and really share this with somebody so that we can be okay. We can be all right. And when life presents these situations, I show up my best self, even in the worst of situations, because I really want to be the best version of me all the time. I want to thank you for whatever space you've allowed me to come into. Thank you all so very much. Happy New Year to you. And let's keep doing what we do, you all. Let's keep building community. Let's keep maintaining connectivity. Let's keep our heads up. Let's keep our hopes up. Make sure that you stay safe, stay sane. And until the next time we talk, do me a favor and tell somebody, come on, let's talk the color. Thank you so much. Please know that from my heart to yours, there is and always will be so much love. Good night, everybody.